infections. This isn't an infection, by the way. This is sterile abscess. We get loads of those with a particular product I'm not going to mention. And that's a neutrophilic response. So, I mean, it looks like pus, but you can sort of look at it, send it for culture and sensitivity, it does nothing. Now, a colleague of mine in Holland, as you know, Tim de Cattes, is saying that they're all weird bacteria if you do a PCR. I'm not sure if I totally agree with that, because why should they all be weird infections? You know, that was an infection. So when hyaluronic acid started, don't forget we were having blindness with fillers in the 1950s. So we thought when hyaluronic acid came, it would stop all that. Particularly fat embolism for tear troughs was causing blindness. So in 1999, that was one of my first patients. Thankfully, I'd be able to use my own, and some steroids was able to clear that. Then we had the problems with Sculptra, and unfortunately, I was on the Sanofi board. I think, did you cross over from them? No, it was Gary outside. Gary Conroy crossed over. Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, the original problems, I thought, were because we used 8 mil, whereas everybody else was using 3 mil bacteriostatic, water for injections, and then lidocaine as well. And they were saying, no, you're treating all the HIV people, so they don't have response. And I was saying, and one of my colleagues in Holland was saying that. I said, that's not right, because, I mean, all the patients we're treating have CD4 levels and no viral load. So, I mean, they have an immune response. There are people who are on AVRs, and as a consequence, what you're saying is wrong. You're diluting it wrong. So then that was a case I got from Newcastle. Unfortunately, that was tough on that patient. And so we biopsied the patients, and we discovered I was right. It was crystals. It wasn't collagen. So that was from St. Vincent's at the time. And we were getting patients even from New Zealand, believe it or not, with all those granules at that stage. It was a big problem. So it has lessened since we now mix it with 8 mils. The only problem is that when COVID kicked off and the vaccines kicked off, we started getting all those patients in. So then HIV was big 20 years ago. So we used BioAlcamid, and these were some of the patients. We were glad to use BioAlcamid for the simple reason that if you used Sculptra, you ran the risk of a needle stick injury, because they needed 5 treatments with about 70 injections per treatment. Plus, to be honest, you couldn't trust the patients coming from overseas. You didn't know who they were. Unless you asked for their passport, they could be giving you anybody's bloods, and you could be at risk of a needle stick. So there's the first patient that was treated in the United States by myself over 20 years ago now. In isolation in his apartment in New York for a couple of years. And believe it or not, once he got treated, he went on a cruise liner. That was maybe acidotal. That was one of the first papers I'd written with David Goldberg regarding the use of BioAlcamid. There was 3 of us doing it in the world: Robert Gallo in California, Peter Veldhaus in Eindhoven, and myself. And I'd treated about 45 patients. But then BioAlcamid kicked off as well. So you had this problem here. It appeared like 10 years later. BioAlcamid since has been taken off the market. And it again formed these sterile abscesses, and there was lots of these. Lucky, any of the patients that happened to me, and it wasn't too many, I had only 3 of them, I was able to immediately remove it because I only went in with one direction. That sort of, so I knew how to take it back out again. And it's so funny, some of my colleagues, when they're injecting mid-cheek, came up with the injection point and called it after themselves. I said, but sure, we were doing that with HIV. And we were putting up to 20 mils in a face, you know. 20, when you were still in med school, you know, like this here, there's only one way into the face, because if you want to miss the transverse facial arteries, parotid duct, the infraorbital artery, you're going to go up or out, or a bit like injecting a bottom with to miss the sciatic nerve. So